A very warm welcome to all the students of class 9. Here we are with a new video of English 1 from the book Movements, chapter 3, Iswaran the Storyteller. First of all, we'll see the introduction of the chapter. The title of this chapter is Iswaran the Storyteller, that tells us that this story is about Iswaran, and he was known as the storyteller. Why? Because storytelling is an art. He is good at it. And Iswaran uses special effects. He used to have a proper voice modulation. He uses his body language to make the story realistic so that the listener who is listening the story get attracted and captivated in his story. So in this way the Mahendra gets attracted in his story, and the writer wants to highlight this quality of Iswaran, that he was so good at telling stories that they appeared to be real, and his stories were a source of entertainment for Mahendra. Let us begin with the story. I'll read it and explain you accordingly. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra by name. See, Mahendra narrated a story about his cook Iswaran to Ganesh, and he was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Supervisor is a person whose job is to check the work of all the other people. So Mahendra narrated the story about his cook Iswaran to Ganesh, and Mahendra worked as a junior supervisor in a company, and which provided junior supervisors to various construction companies on rent, and he got posted at different sites like factories, bridges, and dams which were under construction. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. His job was to look after the activities which were going at the work site, and he had to keep moving from one place to a place every now and then, and as ordered by his head office, from a coal mining areas to a railway bridge construction site, and from there after a few months to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. See, he has to move. Mahendra's work was to keep an eye on all the workers at the site, and he had to change places often and worked at various places like coal mine, railway bridge, construction site, and the construction site of the chemical plant also. He was bachelor. Bachelor means a person who is unmarried. His needs were simple, and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of a stone quarry. See, quarry makeshift means it's a temporary, and quarry means mine. But one asset he had was his cook Ishwaran. See, as Mahendra was unmarried, he did not have a family, and he was able to live in a temporary quarter which was provided to him at the construction site. And he adjusted well in the circuit house, which did not provide the basic needs, or even the tents, which were temporary in nature. And Mahendra had an advantage. What was that advantage? That he was accompanied by his cook, whose name was Iswaran, and the cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed his uncomplainingly whenever he was posted. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes, chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on varied subject. See, asset means he get advantage. An anecdote means a short, amusing, or interesting story about a real incident or a person. So Iswaran was very close to Mahendra, and he accompanied him everywhere. Everywhere he accompanied him. and he did not complain about the tough condition in which he had to live. And he cooked food for him, he washed his clothes, gave him company by talking to him at night. Iswaran had a quality that he was good at telling stories, and he entertained Mahendra with his story, which were based on different subject, and a very short, amusing, and interesting stories, and which look real incident like a person. And this type of story he used to narrate of the various subject. Iswaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shop visible for miles around. See, in this, what he is saying, desolate means uninhabited, means empty. And Mahendra tells Ganesh that Ishwaran was a great cook. He used to cook very good. And whenever they shifted to a new location, when they used to move, he would gather all the vegetables and the other ingredients required by him to cook in no time. And as they lived at places which was not inhabited by many people, and in temporary shelter with roofs made of metallic sheet. See, here it is said, he would miraculously conjure men together or create with magic up the most delicious dishes up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet sheltered at the new workplace. Zinc sheet shelter means what? A temporary place to live with a roof made of metallic sheet. See, in this way, they were in the temporary shelter, which was made of metallic sheet. It seemed as it would do some magic and gather all the ingredients out of nowhere. Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Iswaran would tidy up the sheds, wash the clothes, and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head, muttering a prayer all the while, and it would be a lunchtime by then. See, muttering means speaking in a low voice. Mahendra would wake up early in the morning and he used to get ready and leave for his work after having his breakfast, and he would carry his lunch along with him. After he left, Iswaran would clean everything. He would leave all the living place where he used to live. He used to wash Mahendra's clothes and have a nice bath. He would take many buckets of water and pour water on his head while mumbling a prayer, while saying a prayer in a low voice. And after eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Its imaginative description and narrative flourishes would hold Iswaran in thrall. See, after that, what he used to do, that he used to eat his lunch and get ready his favorite book, which was in Tamil language. Iswaran would get carried away with the details and description given in the book, that he used to read it, and then he would go to sleep. His own description were greatly influenced by Tamil author that he read when he was narrating even the smallest of incident. He would try to work in suspense and a surprise ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uproot tree on the highway, he would say, with the eyebrows suitably arched and hands held out in a dramatic gesture. See, arched means curved, and gesture is a movement of hands for head to indicate something. As Iswaran read stories with detailed description, he narrated them in the same way. See, Mahindra used to recollect that he would narrate even a small incident with a lot of suspense would be there in the incident and the surprise, which made him very interesting for the listener. And the way he used to voice modulate and speak, that made very interesting for the listener who is listening it. And then he gives an example that instead of saying that he was walking down the highway and he came across a tree which had broken and had fallen on the road. In this way, the Iswaran would use his facial expression and bodily gesture to narrate it. He would say that the road was empty and he was all alone, and this would create suspense in the listener's mind. And then he would say that all a sudden he saw a huge beast was lying across the road. See what he said, the road was deserted. Deserted means empty and was all alone. And suddenly I spotted something that looked like enormous, means huge, bushy beast lying swept across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out, and Mahendra would sketch himself back in his canvas chair and listen to Iswaran's tales uncritically. See what it is said over here, that it would create a listener, create a suspense when the listener is listening, and it would create a suspense in his mind, in the listener's mind. And then he would say that all a sudden he saw a huge beast that was lying across the road, and he walked ahead. He was walking slowly, moving ahead, and his mind was telling him to turn and go back. As he reached closer, he saw that it was a tree that had fallen and was lying on the road, and the branches of the tree that had spread out, and it was seemed like a huge beast. Mahindra say that this talent of Iswaran that made a simple story also very interesting and captivated him. And although he knew that some of these stories were not true also, but the way the Iswaran narrated them, it feels that it was interesting and that Mahindra would not say anything and listen to him quietly. Hope you all have understood till here. In the next video, we'll move ahead. Thank you.